Why is the flash on?
We here at Adams City University Theater acknowledge that there is a gender inequality in our society that's based on religion, age, sex, job, race, and ethnicity. Here are their stories. Incarcerated women as a group experience violence, victimization, drug involvement, and addiction, sexual transmitted diseases, and HIV infection as disproportionately greater rates than the general population. In a sample of 66 Philadelphia jail inmates, 1/2 had a history of sexual abuse, and 3/4 had been physically beaten by a boyfriend or spouse. In North Carolina, pregnant prisoners were compared with pregnant patients seen in the health department and found to be twice as likely as the community women to have experienced both physical and sexual violence, and more than 3 times likely to have experienced both types of violence. Lauren Johnson walked into an aging Travis County jail just outside of Austin on a sunny Friday in July of 2018 and steeled herself. Every time she passed through the door and the smell hit her, it all came rushing back. The humiliation of being shackled while 9 months pregnant. The pang of seeing her children from behind a glass barrier. How she had to improvise with what little she had, crafting makeshift bras of disposable mesh underwear the jail provided. We are women.
Two jails in southern USA were right next to each other, one male and one female. Inmates from the male prison came over to the female prison on the regular to basically just do their jobs. If you didn't know, the inside of a prison works without any outside help. There's no one coming in to do the laundry of the inmates. It's all done by the inmates themselves, and for some it is a large part of their reform. When the state allowed the male prisoners to take over the jobs in the female prison, it was telling us that we are not capable. And it is denying women the wages that they can earn inside the prison to buy necessities, such as feminine hygiene products, which oftentimes are not provided. We are underestimated.
So, I went to this job interview, and the owner brought me into his office. We sat in silence for about 5 minutes while he was doing something, and then when he finally spoke to me, his first question was, "How much do you weigh?" I was very confused and didn't answer. He proceeded to ask my bra size, and other very disturbing questions that had nothing to do with my qualifications. I had a male friend who went in for an interview maybe a week later, and he said that the man was nice and polite and asked him about his previous work experience, and it went smoothly, like a job interview should be. I have other female friends who worked there who also said their interviews went similar to that, and that it was clear who made more money than who was treated better at the workplace. They put in no effort to hide it. We are objectified.
Being equal means having to be able to be the same amount of something. Look at the 2 candles, for instance. They're equal. What's it like to be equal? Today in the USA, not many women are equal between their pay gap of men and women. What's the difference between a raise? and a lower raise. Today in the US, women's earnings are 74.7% lower than men's. Women's median weekly earnings are $937, while men's are $1,000. Men's weekly earnings are $1,000 to $2,000 a month. Women workers in the US today are 114,000 people, and that's 48.2% of women. A woman can work hours after hours, and they come home and do it hours after hours. Well, men do the same. While men may not work in full amount, they get maybe money that's worth amount a raise, while women can get 50 cents up a raise. What's the difference between equal? We are underappreciated.
It's luck. Poor luck. Born with 2 X chromosomes. To be a woman is to be cursed with bad luck. It's news. Horrible, horrible news. You're in pain. No one believes you. To be a woman is to experience bad news. It's pain, excruciating, excruciating pain. No open sores or blood for proof. To be a woman is to be unable, is to be in undeniable pain. It's frustrating, immensely, immensely frustrating. You're gaslit, perceived to be dramatic. To be a woman is to be constantly frustrated. It's terrifying, extremely, extremely terrifying. Living in a state of panic. Will I die? To be a woman is to be burdened with terror. It's depressing, deeply, deeply depressing. Losing a part of your life, a part of you. To be a woman is to experience depression. It's wrong. It's very, very wrong. It's about time we start believing. To be a woman is to deserve human decency. We are misdiagnosed.
Internalized transphobia. It manifests in different ways for different people. For me, it's the expectance of unacceptance. No one will accept me if I don't accept myself first. This mantra might be true for some people, but for me, self-acceptance of my gender fluidity sprouted from the overwhelming acceptance and support I received from my friends, my professors, my family, and my partner. I recognize that I am extremely lucky to be surrounded by love and support. It makes it easier to accept myself and be happy. But it doesn't fix everything. The expectance of unacceptance still exists within me. I still have days where I feel invalid for wearing certain clothes or asking to be referred to as a specific gender identity when that identity doesn't align with my body, or even if it does. I believe this is a journey that I will be on for a long time, but I know that eventually I will abolish my internalized transphobia. I'm so incredibly grateful to the people around me and the self-love they continue to teach me, whether they know they are or not. And I ask that you practice acceptance of all people, no matter their gender identity. To begin to eliminate internalized transphobia, we must work to eliminate transphobia and replace it with love and acceptance. From that, a better world will be born. We are invalid.
I don't like our room a bit. I wanted one downstairs that opened on a piazza and had roses all over the window, and such pretty old-fashioned chintz hangings. But John would not hear of it. He said there was only one window and no room for 2 beds, and no near room for him if he took another. He is very careful and loving and hardly lets me stir without special direction. I have a schedule, prescription for each hour of the day. He takes all care from me. And so I feel basically I'm grateful not to value it more. He said we came here solely on my account, and that I was to have perfect rest and all the air I could get. Your exercise depends on your strength, my dear, he says, and your food somewhat on your appetite, but air you can absorb all the time. So we took the nursery at the top of the house. It's a big, airy room, the whole floor nearly, with windows that look always, and air and sunshine galore. It was nursery first, and then playground and gymnasium. I should judge, for the windows are bared for little children, and there are rings and things on the walls. The paint and paper, as if the schoolboys had used it. It stripped off the paper in great patches all around the head of my bed, about as far as I could reach. And in a great place on the other side of the room, low and down. I never saw worse paper in my life. One of those sprawling, flamboyant patterns combining every artistic sin. It is dull enough to confuse the eye, and following, pronounced enough to constantly irritate and provoke study. And when you follow the lame, uncertain curves for a little distance, they suddenly commit suicide, plunge off at outrageous angles, destroy themselves in unheard of contradictions. The color is repellent, unclean yellow, strangely faded by the slow turning sunlight. It is dull yet lurid orange in some places, a sticky sulfur tint in others. No wonder the children hated it. I should hate it myself if I had to live in this room long. There comes John, and I must put this away. He hates having me write a word. We are enfeebled.
Me? I was sexually harassed once. I was working at JCPenney, and this woman, she was a mom, she's probably like in her 30s, came up to me and said I was big and strong, and I was like, okay, that's a little weird. But then I came up and rung her out at the register, and she knows my name tag, which said Thor, which was an inside joke at where I worked, because I was a big guy with long hair. She intended to grab my chest and told me that she wanted me to come home with her and to even do sexual things with her. She told me that at the JCPenney store. And I told her I was only 18, and she's like, perfect. And at the time, that boosted my ego, because I was like this 18-year-old kid. But now I see that was sexual harassment, and that wasn't very good. It's kind of weird how social norms work, that men are raised to understand lust, and women to understand love. We are delusional. We are